Welcome. This is our documentary on the rise and the fall of the Berlin Wall. We will be talking about why the Berlin Wall was built and how it was destroyed. We have some exclusive interviews with some professionals and people who were there. Hope you enjoy. This is the rise of the Berlin Wall. The barrier included guard towers placed along large concrete walls, which circled a wide area that contained anti-vehicle trenches, fakir beds, and other defences. The wall was mostly built overnight, however, this was just a small barbed wire barricade until later it got built up with concrete and steel beams. There were also certain checkpoints which people could get through. One of these was called Checkpoint Charlie.
This shows a picture of the Berlin Wall. As you can see, it is quite large and was built by many people.
The war had lots of impacts both on government and also the people who got separated. The impacts were awful, as lots of Germans could not see their family or their friends on the other side of the wall.
People who worked on either side of the wall suddenly lost their jobs because they could not go to the other side of the wall. Then, by losing their jobs, they could not buy food for their families. The Berlin Wall caused a lot of unrest and upset for many Germans on both sides.
The walls are very harsh. On the Russian east side, the wall was plain and had many guards and soldiers around it trying to stop people from escaping. The west, however, was graffitied and colourful. The East Germans Guard killed over 100 people who were trying to escape from the horrible life in Berlin. Life in the East was very harsh as there were little supplies and not a lot of food, so people would often go hungry or die of hunger. A popular German film called The Tunnel was a film based on a true story and was about the people living on both sides of the wall and how they tried to get out of the wall. The film was based on a true story and was a good way of showing the hardships of the wall, both as a fictional piece, but also as a good way of seeing the truth.
Wir haben hier unsere Freunde. Wir haben hier eine schöne Wohnung. Und die Mauer. Da drüben herum.
Berlin 1961.
Geh nicht unter runter. Lass doch meine Schwester nicht alles zurück. Wir müssen 7 Meter runter. Unter die Kanalisation. Und dann 145 Meter geradeaus.
Der Tunnel.
Ich will mitmachen. Bleib, wo du bist, Mann!
Für die Freiheit ist kein Preis zu hoch.
The overall impact of the war was that everyone on both sides were very angry and both disapproved of the war. Life became much harder for the people, especially on the east side.
This was a man who said a very powerful quote. The wall was brought down not by Washington or Moscow, but the courageous people of the East. This quote was by Gerhard Schrödinger, Chancellor of Germany from 1998 to 2005. This is a quote from the Chancellor of Germany, so it means quite a bit. The quote talks about how the people of Germany managed to bring down the wall and how it was really the work of their efforts and not the rest of the world.
The wall was brought down in the evening of 9th of November 1989 and continued over the following days and weeks, with people nicknamed Marspecht, wall woodpeckers, using various tools to chip off souvenirs. This was the point when the wall fell down. This was the end of the separation of Berlin and the start of a new, better Germany, full and complete.
Nobody really could believe it. And people were turning on their radios and televisions because this was all before Facebook and Twitter. And they were trying to get glimpses of news, and they were calling friends in Berlin if this was really true. And bit by bit, news came in, and everybody went to the televisions to see what was being broadcasted. And it was a time of really disbelief and jubilation at the same time. You know, jubilation really for families being reunited again, but also for the people to be set free from communism.
The wall fell down because of a few main reasons. First, the Soviet economy was failing. The Russians were becoming less and less able to fund all of their countries and give them money and aid. It was also hard for them to pay all of their soldiers and men who worked for them. This led to a large economical crisis. The wall also fell down because of how efficient and effective the US and NATO were at trying to overpower the small Soviet countries and make them to revoke the Russian ways. This meant they had a lot less support for the Soviet Union. This linked to the extended empire of the Soviets becoming too large to govern efficiently and for the collapsing from excessive weight and dysfunctionality.
I think one of my favourite theories is by a historian called Niall Ferguson, who basically put the whole thing down to genes, as in denim genes, because he said that people who lived in communist nations were so jealous of the fact that Americans got to wear jeans, that's why they decided they didn't want to be communist anymore. Which I thought was quite an interesting take on things, but basically what that's saying is that it's the idea of consumerism, and the fact that in a capitalist society what ultimately happens is that people have more stuff, and people who have more stuff tend to be happier. They have better clothes and better TVs and better movies, and even though a lot of communist regimes did everything they could to try and prevent that information coming in, they knew how good life in America
The
was.
Berlin Wall was a significant part to the world's history because it was really the end of the Cold War, and this meant that communism was starting to recede and the world was now starting a new era. The Berlin Wall also been called the most important event since the end of the World Wars and has remained so for very long.